Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sangham namasami. I'd like to say a few words this evening about imagination, proliferation, or identification. There's quite a number of suttas, short teachings of the Buddha, where the Buddha would be asked by somebody, one of the monks or nuns or a wanderer, a spiritual seeker, can you give me a teaching on the Dhamma? Let me have your teachings in brief. Give me the short version so that I can practice with this teaching and take it away with me, use it for liberation. And this happened many times. And there's a lovely section in the Samyutta Nikaya, which is the short discourses of the Buddha, huge compilation of teachings, divided up into chapters, as probably many of you know, on specific topics. So it's a really wonderful resource for us. If we have a question in mind, or there's a topic we want to explore in detail, depth, then we can often find a chapter in the Samyutta Nikaya which will meet our query. And I think it's the third volume, the third section of Samyutta Nikaya is on the khandhas, the 5 khandhas, all different teachings about the 5 khandhas. And in the chapter 22 of this section of Samyutta Nikaya, there are many suttas where the Buddha is asked this question: can you give me a potted summary, presi, a short version of your teaching that I can take away and practice with? And the Buddha gives many, many different answers to this question. And we can only assume that most likely the Buddha, being the Buddha, would have been able to observe the questioner and see, what would be the most helpful, relevant teaching for this person. And so on one occasion, a wanderer came to the Buddha and asked this question: please give me a brief teaching. And I'll see if I can remember this precise answer the Buddha gave. He said, Manyamano Baddo Marasa Amanyamano Mutto Papimato. Manyamano Baddo Marasa Amanyamano Mutto Papimato. This is the Buddha's teaching in short. And this is a beautiful teaching, and I want to speak a little bit about it this evening. So the Buddha is saying to this person, Manyamano. Manyati is to imagine. Amanyamano is one who imagines, the mind that imagines. And the word Baddo is very much like the word Buddho, but Buddho, where Buddho means one who's awake, aware. Baddo means one who is burdened, one who is tethered, bonded, kind of trapped. Bado, manyamano bado. When we imagine, when we identify, when we proliferate mentally, we become trapped, we become caught up, we're in bondage to marasa, to Mara. This was the teaching of the Buddha. When you imagine you're in bondage to Mara, what's Mara? Mara is death. Mara is delusion. Mara is, in the Buddhist kind of cosmology, as many of you will know, Mara is the evil one, the quite high being on quite a high plane of existence, a very kind of privileged state, but who, despite having an expansive mind, great capability to know, to understand reality, Mara is the one who loves to distort reality, who's the great deluder. And we all can recognize this quality, this aspect in our own hearts, in our own minds, the quality of, not being quite sincere, not really wanting to know the truth, wanting to turn away from the truth and steep ourselves, rest in delusion. So this is both considered in Buddhism as a kind of external being, but also actually, and more importantly for us in a way, a quality that we can have, the danger that we can delude ourselves, we can deceive ourselves, we can turn away from the truth, from the Dhamma. So one who imagines, one who proliferates mentally, is bound by Mara, is bound by delusion. And then the Buddha went on to say, amanyamano, one who is not imagining, proliferating. Mutti, freedom. Papimato, one who's not imagining, is free, is not ensnared, is not caught up by papimato, by the evil one, which again is Mara, delusion. So imagining, in short, the Buddha's teaching here is saying that when we imagine, when we mentally proliferate, we're bound by delusion. And when we cease our mental proliferations, when we're not imagining, then freedom from evil is possible. Freedom from the evil one, papimato. So I find this really powerful. There are many ways in which the Buddha gave a succinct, a short, a very pithy teaching that could encapsulate the entire path. And this is one of those occasions. And it's worth looking at all the others too, but this is one aspect that we can really look at and consider carefully and see how we can find our way to freedom, to mutto, freedom. Freedom from delusion. There's a very amazing sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. It's the first sutta. And often, the first sutta in any particular series of teachings is quite a significant one. And this is the case in Majjhima Nikaya, the first sutta. I can't remember the name of it, but it's all about imagining and how we create our worlds. And in this sutta, the Buddha is saying, just as a summary, I can say that he's pointing to all the different aspects of our universe that we can know, that we can experience, and that each one of those we can add to the experience through imagination, imagining, proliferation. For instance, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. The five khandhas, the body, perceptions, feelings, thoughts, consciousness, and all the different beings and all the different planes of existence that we can know of. In all these ways we experience the world. The Buddha said, we tend, if we're not on the path, if we're not practicing very carefully, very kind of rigorously, we tend to imagine. And what do we imagine? What is it that we're adding to the simple experience of body, of sense inputs, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, of perceptions, feelings, and thoughts? What are we adding? And in this Sutta Majjhima number 1, the Buddha is saying, well, we're imagining self. We're imagining that these experiences are in self, or they are self, or self is in them. They're created by self. In all different ways, we spin, we sort of add this whole aspect of selfhood to experience. That's one way in which and the most important way in a way to consider ways in which we add to experience, we imagine on top of the simple experiences. And the great thing about meditation, of course, is that we're stripping away, aren't we? We're recognizing mental proliferation as it happens when we sit, when we meditate. And it can be pretty surprising for us, can't it, when we first start to try and focus on some aspect of experience, perhaps the breath or body awareness of one sort or another, in one way or another. When we try to focus our attention, we can begin then to really notice how much proliferation is going on, how much papancha in the Pali, how much spinning, how much adding, how many layers we pile on top of the simple experience of being here, feeling the body, noticing the breath, seeing, hearing, and so forth. And it's sobering to discover that we have so much kind of wildness, so much conditioning, so much habitual adding, imagining, embellishing of experience. What am I talking about? Let me give a concrete example. For instance, I'm sitting and I'm feeling a bit unwell, actually, and there's a headache and there's a clenching in the belly. And it's quite unpleasant. It feels, there's definitely a sense of wanting to get away from this feeling. And I can observe that. And I'm able to really rest in this simple awareness for a while. And then perhaps a thought comes. How long is this going to last? I wish this would end. And then maybe a memory comes of some difficult event that happened in the past. And what's really noticeable, actually, is that when there's painful feeling in the body, often the mind will kind of throw up, quite naturally, in a way, reveal memories, thoughts, and also feelings can arise that are quite negative, quite difficult to be with. It's like a constellation happens, isn't it? It's like there's a painful feeling in the body, and then all sorts of negative thoughts and feelings can kind of cascade from that feeling, can kind of manifest in the mind, in the heart, in the body. And there's a relationship between the simple experience of a headache and a clenching in the gut and all of this imagining, all of this additional experience that comes up for us, comes to the fore for us. And this is not at all a problem. It's not something to feel badly about. It's simply an opportunity to see how manyamano, imagining, bado, is bondage for us. It tethers us, it ties us down. So we can notice how we're kind of, in a way, in a kind of mire, in a kind of bog, a sort of marshland, where we're kind of trapped and sort of, in a way, as if we're caught up in vines and weeds and, plants in a marshland. We're kind of trapped in this boggy place by our past conditioning, by past karma. And it's wonderful to be able to notice this. This is actually the Buddha's pointing to the fact that this is our reality when we're not free from the defilements, we're not seeing things clearly. There's still some ignorance in the heart, in the mind. And amanyamano, mutto, papimato, when we can notice the imagining that's going on, the additional elements that are arising for us mentally, physically, then we can be free. We can find freedom through the noticing of that, and then the understanding that these things are imaginings. They're not real. The thoughts, the feelings, the memories I may have can arise and they will pass, and they're not actually real in this moment. In this moment, there's a headache, there's a tightness in the belly, and everything else that is manifesting is like it's as if we're digging. When we're mindful, it's as if we're digging the earth and we're uncovering all sorts of different objects, all sorts of different experiences can happen, and we can notice what's there, and we can allow its moment of freedom, in a way, its moment of arising. We can recognize painful memory, negative feeling, hostility towards this pain, hostility towards the body, not wanting, aversion, imagining all sorts of connections between this simple feeling in the body and past feelings, memories of feelings. So, we can unearth, and uncover past karma, past conditioning, simply by, the willingness to be with what's happening right now. This is not a problem. This is a gift. This is a blessing. So we can see the imaginings, we can see the layers of suffering as they arise. And if we're really mindful, if we can be present, if we can just be with the breath, be with the simple experience of body right now, then all of this manyati, imagining, can actually have its freedom, have its space, manifest, and then it can fade away, as it will do, as everything does. Everything's changing. We don't have to let go of any, we don't have to hold on, rather, to any of these experiences. And the letting go happens quite naturally through our mindfulness. And as I was describing in the guided meditation, if we can put effort and energy into this ability to be present with what's happening right now, then all the imaginings can reveal themselves. We don't have to be caught up in them. We don't have to be overwhelmed by them. We don't identify with them. We don't make them me or mine, and these things can pass, find their peace, find their resolution. And then we get to the state again and again when the imaginings can fall away and we can recognize freedom, we can taste freedom, because we know that we're not caught by Mara, we're not caught by the evil one. The evil one, the tendency to identify with what's not ours, with what is fleeting, with past karma that is able to arise, be seen, be understood, and then pass away. So this is the path. And my goodness, this simple teaching of the Buddha, pointing to the problem in a way, pointing to the dis-ease. And just as in the First Noble Truth, the Buddha tells us, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, this is the dis-ease. And what is it caused by? It's caused by wanting or not wanting. It's caused by confusion. It's caused by not seeing clearly the way things are. And in the same way, in this short teaching, the Buddha is saying, imagination, imagining, adding to our experience, allowing our minds to spin around experience, to connect all sorts of other experiences to this experience, all sorts of perceptions, all sorts of memories. This is the cause of our trouble. This is the cause of strife. This is where we get deluded. And if we can see that, know that, just take in this simple teaching, then we can kind of move in the direction of not getting caught up in our imaginings, in our imagination, but just resting in the simple reality of each present moment. And in the sutta, the Buddha gave this very short teaching. And rather than disappearing, immediately going off to spend the rest of his life practicing this teaching, putting it into practice, this wanderer actually lingered for a short while. And because he lingered, the Buddha asked him or her, asked them, so what does this teaching mean to you? How do you understand the teaching I've just given you? Imagining is bondage to Mara. Not imagining is freedom from the evil one. What does this teaching mean to you? And this person responded so beautifully in a way that the Buddha congratulated them and said, well done, you've understood this teaching. What did they say? How did they respond? This wanderer replied to the Buddha, yes, I've understood this teaching. The body, in relation to the body, I can notice imagining, and I will be in bondage to Mara. There can be imagining, there can be embellishment, there can be proliferation, and I will be in bondage to Mara. But if I'm able to let go of imagining, see through proliferation, then I will be free from the evil one. In relation to feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feelings, if I allow imagining, proliferation, embellishment, then I will be in bondage to Mara. But if I let go of imagining and simply experience feelings as feelings, then I will be free. And in terms of perceptions, if I allow myself to identify with perceptions, to be overwhelmed by perceptions, to be caught up by perceptions, then I will be in bondage to Mara. But if I am able to not identify with perceptions, not imagine, not embellish perceptions, then I will be free. And in terms of mental formations, of choices, of memories, of ideas, views, all of those mental phenomena, if I get caught up in identifying with them, imagining that I am those thoughts, memories, views, choices, mental phenomena, mental formations, then I will be in bondage tomorrow. But if I don't identify with them, if I don't make them mine, then I can be free. And in terms of consciousness, if I identify with consciousness, if I allow myself to be that consciousness, to feel that that consciousness is mine, then I will be in bondage tomorrow. But if I'm able to let go of all this imagining, then I will be free. So in this way, this wanderer, this person who received the most beautiful, concise, short teaching from the Buddha, inviting him to cease imagining, cease proliferating, cease identifying with experience, he was able to come back, or she or they were able to come back to the Buddha and give this teaching back, mirror the teaching back in terms of the 5 khandhas, these 5 heaps, these 5 ways in which we experience the world. This is one very helpful lens through which we can see our experience: body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. And in every case, to recognize where there can be imagining, there can be embellishment. And the most crucial way in which we tend to create more than what actually is in the way that we create a sense of self, create a sense of ownership or control. This really is the most compelling, the most deep-rooted delusion. We can get caught up again and again. We can find ourselves burdened, bonded, trapped in the mire of this sense of ownership, the sense of holding to all these different ways we experience the world as me and mine, my body, my feelings, my perceptions, my thoughts, my consciousness. So in this way, the wanderer was able to apply this teaching to the whole world. This is our world, isn't it? This is the universe for us. It really does cover the entire spectrum of our experience if we look at our experience in these ways. And so the work can be done so we can bring our attention to the ways in which we imagine reality. We imagine on top of reality. We move away from reality through our imaginings, and we create the world of suffering for ourselves. And there's always suffering when we create. There's always a sense of self in our creations. And, it's really difficult to recognize this without mindfulness, without awareness. But when we get to develop mindfulness, when we have the good fortune to come in contact with these teachings and to actually be able to put them into practice, even more amazing, when we have this opportunity, then we can start to unravel the knots of these imaginings, the big knot, the big kind of constellation of selfhood can begin to unravel. And how does it begin to unravel? Well, we're noticing, when we're mindful, that actually in this present experience, it's actually very all-encompassing. It's very compelling to really start to simply feel what is oh, there's a headache here. There's a kind of clenching in the belly. Okay. Oh, and there's all these thoughts and feelings that are coming up in relation to this. Negative, worrying, anxious, kind of resisting thoughts and feelings. I'm wanting to get away from this. I'm wanting to make it stop. I'm feeling that there's something seriously wrong with me. I wonder if I've got some awful disease, and so on and so on. Or I relate it maybe to something that happened yesterday. This is why I'm feeling like this. If only that hadn't happened. And so on and so on. So we can sit and we can notice imaginings. We're spinning. We're going off into all sorts of somehow painful tangents. And we can mindfully come back to what's actually happening right now. What's actually happening right now is there's a headache and there's a tightness in the belly. And that's enough. That's enough to be going on with. That's enough to keep the attention, to anchor the attention in the body is enough. And through doing this, we can breathe deep, breathe into the pain, really investigate what's actually happening in the body right now. And all these thoughts and proliferations can be going on, but we are directing our attention to pain in the body, discomfort in the belly, pain in the head. Breathing in, breathing out, and being with the simple reality of this moment. Freedom, freedom. And what happens is the whole cascade of thoughts and feelings can play out, but we're not caught up in it. The thoughts and feelings can arise and pass, find their peace, and we're here observing, freeing up. We're here feeling what we feel in this moment, right here. And gradually, as we give up on the imaginings and notice the freedom, we can also begin to notice that there's change here. Things are not static. This pain is not going to last forever. It's not lasting even for a moment. It's coming and going. It's arising and passing. And we can start to relax so that the tightening can begin to release. The tensions in the body, the shoulders, the neck can begin to release and relax very naturally through our kind attention, through this ability to not be imagining, but to be present, to be here. And all the tensions start to fade, start to dissipate. And so the pain, the headache, the tightness in the belly can also begin to ease, begin to dissolve. I'm not saying that meditation is necessarily a cure-all, but it certainly helps. And the most important thing in relation to sickness, pain in the body, dis-ease in the body, is that when we pay attention to the body, we're giving a lot of balm, a lot of soothing, real healing energy. And whether we're cured or not, we certainly get some relief, some release, some support for whatever we're dealing with. Because if we pay attention to the body without imagining anything whatsoever, we're simply here, then the body can kind of drink up that warmth of attention and it relaxes. And when the body relaxes, everything relaxes. The mind relaxes, the reactivity to pain relaxes and releases, and the pain itself can often be kind of gently turning into something that we might not even label pain anymore. We might label pressure or pulsation or tightness, heat. So it's very interesting that as we're able to let go of imagining, let go of that bondage to Mara, we start to experience freedom in the heart and also ease and release of suffering. And isn't it interesting that pain is only really painful when we imagine, when we add to the simple experience of powerful, strong feelings in the body. And even the perception of pleasant and unpleasant can be eased and released through our wise attention. So even this degree of experiencing feelings as either pleasant or painful can become something like an imagining for us. And we can start to let go of even this very fundamental push and pull that we can experience around feeling. And then pleasant, painful, or neutral can all sort of blend into something like a neutral sense. No imagining, just feeling. There's just feeling. And we can really start to disentangle, come out of the Maya, step out, get onto the dry ground, the high ground, and survey the scene, and see that so much of our experience of this world is the experience of imagining, of creating, of embellishing. And we're caught by Mara, we're trapped, we're in bondage then. And as we really more and more fully allow ourselves to dwell in the present moment experience, we can see how this quality of imagining, this embellishment of experience goes very deep. It's very quick. We're very quick to add to our experience. If I have pain in my head and tightness in my belly, and I think it's mine, then I suffer. And it's very, very quick, this sense of making it mine, my body, my pain. Ouch, then that really hurts. But if I notice the imagining as it arises, I can see how I'm adding the sense of me and mine to a feeling that may be an unpleasant feeling, but it's not me and it's not mine. It's something that's arising and passing. And if I can let go of all the imagining, then that's all that's happening. And that's very bearable. That's very okay. There's no suffering in that. And then even the sense of unpleasant feeling, one can really investigate that. Dive deeply into the experience and see how even that is a kind of an imagining, and I can actually simply feel what I feel what is felt, simply feel. And then there's really no pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. There's just feeling. And there's no need then to pull away, to resist, or to hold on to anything at all. This is just in relation to feeling, but we can relate this ability to let go of imagining to all the five khandhas, to the body experience, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness itself. So seeing how we can free up, it's just an endless journey. And it's a wonderful journey of exploring reality and stripping away, to be able to have the sense of hearing from the Buddha. There is imagining happening. There is proliferation. There is identification. This is the cause of suffering. And if one can be aware of that and then let go of the imagining, then freedom is right there. This is something we can apply in our practice, not just on the mat. It's very helpful to bring in these kind of contemplations as we sit and let them do their work. But also we can consider this teaching in our everyday life, bring it in, see where there's imagining, see where one is adding to experience, see where the sense of self comes in and how quickly it comes in. And notice how painful that is, how frightening that is, how stressful that is. And then we can, through understanding the suffering right there, we can let go of it and be free. Be free. Rest in anatta, not self. See the way things are constantly changing. See that there's unsatisfactoriness in all these experiences, but we don't have to own them. We don't have to make them mine. We can be free. So I hope this reflection is helpful. Ewan.